Welcome to our 5 on 5. We're pleased to be joined by Senator Ron Wyden. Senator, good to see you. How are you today?
Thanks for having me back.
Our pleasure. Happy holidays to you.
Thank you as well.
All right, so let's start with your timber plan. You released it last week. Why is this the best plan for Oregon's forests?
Well, first of all, there are two pieces to the puzzle. There's the safety net legislation. I was able to get about $100 million that'll be coming to rural counties very soon. That's for police and schools and roads and basic services. Then the second part of the effort is getting folks back to work in the woods. And this is legislation that's supported by timber company owners, environmentalists, scientists, and the Bureau of Land Management, which is the relevant federal agency, has validated the numbers here, and the numbers are it would double the harvest on average each year for the next 20 years.
Some environmentalists say the plan brings back a type of clear cutting. Is that true?
It doesn't. There are absolutely no clear cuts here. There is ecological forestry, and I was very proud that we were able to have significant environmental support as well. At the press conference where we kicked it off in the governor's ceremonial office last week, we had timber owners standing right next to environmentalists, folks like the Pew Charitable Trust, advocates for salmon, the hunters and anglers, the sportsman organization have put out a wonderful video, and so we've got a broad cross-section of support.
Your plan calls for Oregon's trees to be divided into logging and non-logging zones. The trees in the logging zone would have to be 150 years old or less. How would that be monitored? Well,
essentially what we do, and it's not been an approach used before, is strike a balance on the most contentious issue, which is litigation. So often you have litigation that just goes on and on. It's almost like you have a constitutional right to a 5-year delay. What we stipulate is that for both the moist forests and the dry forests, you would essentially get one major bite at the apple, one major crack at the environmental impact statement, and then for the next 10 years, unless there were exceptional circumstances, you had to comply with it. I think that's going to help us strike a good balance between creating jobs and protecting the environment.
Okay. One environmental group, Oregon Wild, worries that after 20 years at 350 million board feet per year, the trees will simply run out in the logging zones and with them the jobs. What happens then?
I don't see that. And of course, we're going to learn an awful lot about forestry over the next 20 years. I mean, the science constantly keeps changing. I've always put my focus on forest health, because if you have a healthy forest, you can have a healthy economy. We've got millions of acres that needs to be thinned out. This piece of legislation talks about beefing up the harvest, and as I say, our numbers are the only ones that have been independently validated by the Bureau of Land Management, and I think when you double the harvest on average for the next 20 years, you're going to be able to get additional private sector investment in rural communities, and that's going to be a plus.
All right, well, we still have much more to talk about, including the Farm Bill and methamphetamine, but first, we'll take a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Senator Ron Wyden. Senator, you held a press conference today. What were you talking about?
I was talking about the bipartisan effort I have with Senator Thune. He's the Republican senator from South Dakota to protect the charitable deduction. And I think it is so important. We were over at Access, and there were a whole host of community groups, groups for seniors, groups for kids. And the charitable deduction is not a loophole. It is a lifeline. It is the only provision in the tax code which essentially encourages Americans to give up a portion of their income to others. And particularly right now, when senior programs and programs for at-risk kids are facing such challenges, I'm going to pull out all the stops to protect that charitable deduction. That's what I've been doing with bipartisan support on the Senate Finance Committee with John Thune.
You've also been working on the Farm Bill. Is there any movement there for Oregon farmers, organic farmers, or food stamp recipients?
I think we've made some headway. Obviously, there are a number of very contentious issues. The commodity question and the food stamp issues are very significant. I'm also pushing very hard on the international trade front, because what our farmers in particular want to do is grow things in Oregon, add value to them in Oregon, and ship them somewhere. There's a major trade agreement that's being discussed now, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. I'm trying to get some transparency for Oregon on the major provisions, but it's an opportunity for our ag sector to export more.
Okay. Also today, you're in the building meeting with our partners at the Southern Oregon Meth Project. What are we doing about the methamphetamine coming from cartels in Mexico?
Not enough. The federal government needs to step up, and I sure heard that today from Tim George here on the Medford Police and the law enforcement folks. I think there's a new potential threat that the federal government may not know as much about as it should, and that's these drug trafficking organizations. And it appears that many of them essentially originate south of the border and involve organized crime. So I'm going to be working with Tim George and other local law enforcement officials, and we're going to see if we can get the federal government to step up its effort to try to particularly focus on organized crime that's south of the border, but really ripples through to Jackson County and Southern Oregon communities.
Very good, Senator. Great to see you as always.
Let's do it again.
Thank you very much. Stay with us. We'll be right back.